He was just a waiter until he took on a world champion. The upscale martial arts gala was buzzing with excitement. Masters from around the world demonstrated their skills, and the crowd was in awe. Among them, Sensei Taekta, a world-renowned black belt, noticed a tall, quiet waiter moving efficiently between tables. For reasons he couldn't explain, Taekta smirked. "Hey," he called, pointing at the waiter. "Do you practice martial arts? You look strong. Let's spar just for fun." The room hushed. Whispers spread. "He's a waiter. He's not even here to compete." The waiter, Jordan, paused. He was known for his calm demeanor and friendly smile, never seeking attention. Yet something in Taekta's tone triggered a spark. Jordan nodded slowly. "If you insist." The crowd leaned in, sensing that the evening might take an unexpected turn. Taekta approached the center of the arena with a quiet confidence that bordered on arrogance, his polished gi rustling softly with each step. The slight bow he gave before assuming his fighting stance was more than a ritual. It was a declaration, a signal to everyone watching that he believed this would be a simple victory. The audience, a mix of seasoned martial arts enthusiasts and curious onlookers, chuckled at the apparent mismatch. Some whispered about how Taekta had won every match in the regional tournaments with uncanny precision, how his strikes could cut through defenses that others spent years perfecting. Yet Jordan remained unmoved. He didn't mirror Taekta's stance or tension. Instead, he planted his feet firmly but casually, arms relaxed, eyes like polished obsidian, sharp, focused, and unyielding. There was no arrogance in his demeanor, only calm awareness, as if he could see every possible move before it happened. The air in the room seemed to thrum with anticipation. Taekta's first strike came like a viper, a blur that seemed faster than human eyes could track. The audience gasped, thinking this would be the beginning of a typical bout, one-sided and predictable. But Jordan didn't flinch. Instead, he shifted his weight subtly, a micro-adjustment invisible to most, and the strike slid past him as if he had stepped through a moving shadow. Taekta's eyes widened slightly, the first hint of surprise crossing his usually impassive face. He pressed on, launching a flurry of punches and kicks, each more precise and forceful than the last, designed to overwhelm, to break the rhythm of any opponent. But Jordan moved like water, sidestepping, redirecting, and deflecting with a grace that made it seem as though the attacks themselves were getting him rather than the other way around. Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Some whispered that Jordan must have anticipated the moves through training or some uncanny intuition. Others shook their heads, unsure of what they were witnessing. Taekta's strikes, lightning fast and lethal in theory, were rendered ineffective not by counterattacks, but by subtle shifts in posture, by tiny rotations of the torso, by minute changes in angle and timing that made each blow miss its mark. Jordan's movements were so fluid, so almost artistic, that it was hard to believe they were defensive at all. They looked like a dance, a carefully choreographed sequence that flowed naturally, effortlessly, as if he were moving in harmony with an invisible force. Taekta's initial confidence faltered. The crowd noticed, their amusement fading into disbelief and awe. He attempted a high kick aimed at Jordan's head, a move that had ended countless matches for him in the past. Jordan leaned back just enough, the tip of Taekta's foot brushing against his shoulder, a light contact that drew a small, audible gasp from the audience. Taekta's expression tightened, his pride pricked. Each attempt he made to dominate, to force the outcome, was slipping through his fingers like water. Jordan, meanwhile, remained unhurried, analyzing, calculating, predicting, not with conscious thought but with an instinct that seemed almost preternatural. Time slowed for those watching. The subtle nuances of combat, the shift of weight, the flicker of an eye, the tension in a muscle, became as significant as the strikes themselves. Jordan's breathing was steady, unnoticeable, each movement economical and precise, yet impossibly smooth. Taekta's strikes began to lose their rhythm, the confidence replaced by frustration. Every feint Jordan executed was met with a calm, measured adjustment. It was as though he could feel the flow of energy in the room, the weight of each motion, the momentum before it even existed. A moment came when Taekta, desperate to regain control, launched a spinning back fist, a risky, powerful move that required perfect timing. The audience collectively held their breath. Yet Jordan simply pivoted, getting Taekta's momentum past him, allowing the attack to sweep harmlessly through empty space. The move that should have ended the fight, that should have asserted dominance, ended in Jordan's favor without him striking a single blow. A stunned silence fell over the room, punctuated only by the shuffling of feet and quiet intake of breath from the spectators. Even Taekta seemed momentarily frozen, his pride and skill momentarily humbled by an opponent who refused to play by conventional rules. Jordan finally shifted, breaking his stance in the smallest, subtlest motion, almost imperceptible, signaling the first deliberate response. It was not an attack meant to harm, but an acknowledgement, a reminder that mastery was not in the speed or strength of strikes, but in understanding, anticipation, and control. He moved once, twice, a gentle redirection, and for the first time, Taekta felt the weight of an opponent who could read him as easily as he had read his own reflections in training mirrors. The crowd erupted, not with cheers for a knockout, but with awe for a performance that transcended combat, that blurred the line between skill and art. Sweat gleamed on Taekta's brow, his chest rising and falling faster than Jordan's steady, controlled breathing. Each attempt to assert dominance was met with effortless defense, each strike countered by anticipation rather than reaction. Jordan's mastery was hidden beneath a humble exterior. There was no showmanship, no desire to humiliate, only the quiet, unyielding expression of skill at its peak. The room vibrated with tension, with respect, with the realization that the fight had already been won, not through force, but through understanding, patience, and flawless execution. Taekta faltered, finally lowering his fists for a split second, and in that moment, Jordan stepped lightly to the side, a motion so graceful it seemed ceremonial. There was no final blow, no dramatic finish, yet the message was clear. Mastery was not about the first strike or the fastest attack. It was about seeing, understanding, and moving with certainty, about flowing with the fight rather than against it. The audience erupted in applause, a mix of shock and admiration, as Taekta's chest heaved with the first hint of humility he had ever shown in a fight. Jordan stood quietly, a figure of calm in the storm of excitement, the very embodiment of precision, patience, and understated power. No words were needed. The first move had already revealed everything, and in that moment, the entire arena understood that they were witnessing something rare, something extraordinary, a mastery that was far beyond mere technique, a force that could not be measured by punches or kicks alone. Taekta's smirk, once confident and bordering on cocky, began to falter, his arrogance giving way to frustration he had never before experienced in the ring. He took a deep, controlled breath, forcing himself to focus, to remind himself that he was the champion of countless regional tournaments, the master of every known combination of strikes and counters. Yet as he launched a spinning kick aimed at a flashy, crowd-pleasing finish, he felt the subtle shift in the air, the way Jordan's eyes followed him with uncanny precision, unblinking, unshaken, and almost serene in their focus. Jordan didn't move like someone preparing to counter. He moved like someone who had already calculated the exact trajectory, weight, and speed of the attack before it even began. The spinning kick came like a comet, fast, sharp, and designed to end the match in a single motion. But Jordan's hand rose gently, almost casually, and caught the kick midair. The audience gasped collectively, the sound echoing like a wave through the arena. It wasn't just the catch, it was the way Jordan redirected it, getting Taekta's momentum harmlessly past him, as if the attack were nothing more than a leaf caught in a current. There was no force, no aggressive retaliation, only perfect control, and the sheer elegance of the move left everyone watching in stunned silence. For the first time, the crowd realized this was no performance, no staged demonstration of skill designed to entertain. This was combat distilled to its purest form, controlled, disciplined, and devastatingly effective, even if Jordan never aimed to hurt. A hush fell over the arena. Even seasoned martial artists leaned forward, their brows furrowed, their eyes wide. The cameras clicked furiously, trying to capture each subtle motion, the bend of a wrist, the shift of weight, the effortless pivot of a foot, all precise, economical, and flawless. One reporter whispered to another, barely audible over the stunned silence, "Who is this guy?" The words were filled with awe, disbelief, and a hint of fear, as if speaking aloud would make the moment lose its gravity. Taekta's chest heaved, his pride punctured. He tried to mask it with another flurry of punches, but each attempt was met with Jordan's calm, almost meditative adjustments. It was as if Jordan could feel Taekta's intentions, reading not only the movements but the very thought behind them. Every strike Taker threw was either sidestepped, redirected, or absorbed in a way that left him off balance, frustrated, and slowly unraveling. The spinning kicks, the rapid-fire punches, the feints meant to deceive, none of it mattered. Jordan moved in harmony with the attack, never more than a fraction ahead, never reactive, always intentional. The audience's reactions grew louder, though still punctuated by gasps. Some whispered in disbelief, some clutched their cameras tighter, others leaned forward as if proximity could somehow help them understand what they were seeing. They weren't watching a fight anymore, they were watching a masterclass, a display of perfect timing, control, and understanding. Taker's eyes flicked around nervously, searching for any sign of weakness, any opening, any error, but there was none. Jordan's movements were flawless, fluid, and deceptively simple, yet behind the simplicity lay an intelligence that Taker couldn't begin to comprehend. In the midst of this, Jordan's calm never wavered. His breathing was steady, even measured. He didn't grit his teeth, didn't flex unnecessarily, didn't display a hint of exertion. Every micro-movement, every subtle adjustment was precise. The way he redirected Taker's kicks, absorbed the momentum of punches, and anticipated feints without hesitation made it clear that he was in complete control of the fight, not through brute force, but through the mastery of understanding motion, balance, and timing. It was as if the fight itself bent to his will. Taker attempted a more aggressive approach, launching a combination of strikes designed to overwhelm. High punches followed by low kicks, spins, and feints, all executed with maximum speed and aggression. Yet Jordan flowed around them, moving like water around stones, always maintaining balance, always preserving calm. There was no panic in his eyes, no rush in his movements. Every strike that should have landed with impact was rendered harmless, diverted, or absorbed without a trace of effort. Taker's frustration became visible. The smirk had vanished completely, replaced by tension and disbelief. He had never faced an opponent who made mastery look so effortless, so understated, and so impenetrable. The crowd's whispers grew into murmurs of astonishment. "Did you see that?" one spectator whispered. "He didn't even touch him. How is that possible?" Cameras continued to flash, but even the reporters struggled to describe the scene. Words seemed inadequate to capture the elegance, the precision, the almost supernatural fluidity of Jordan's movements. It wasn't just skill, it was art, discipline, intuition, and intelligence combined into one unyielding presence. Taker tried a desperate spinning back kick, a move that in any other fight would have been decisive. Jordan simply stepped aside, getting Taker's momentum past him, and the crowd erupted in a sound that was half cheer, half collective gasp. For the first time, Taker realized that raw aggression and speed were meaningless against someone who could predict, redirect, and control without ever striking to harm. Each of his attacks seemed to vanish into the air, their force neutralized not by strength but by foresight. The arena was filled with tension, a palpable energy that pressed against the walls, the ceiling, and the hearts of everyone watching. Jordan didn't need to shout, didn't need to attack, didn't need to dominate. The lesson was already clear. True mastery was invisible, subtle, and unstoppable, and in this room, that lesson had been written in motion. Taker's confidence was shattered. He took a step back, his chest rising and falling quickly, sweat glistening on his brow. He knew deep in the pit of his pride that he had met someone unlike any opponent before, someone who had turned the fight into a lesson on control, patience, and perfect execution. Jordan, meanwhile, stood quietly, arms relaxed, eyes focused, not on Taker, but on the rhythm of the fight itself, embodying the calm center in a storm of aggression. The audience was on the edge of their seats, witnessing not just a fight, but a revelation, a moment that would be remembered long after the cheers faded and the cameras stopped flashing. Every spectator understood it, whether they realized it or not. This was no ordinary match, no ordinary fighter, and no ordinary display of skill. Jordan had taken the first step in a journey that was about more than victory. It was about showing the world the power of discipline, awareness, and mastery hidden behind humility. Taker, once a champion confident in his invincibility, was now faced with the humbling truth: raw skill alone was not enough. The unexpected turn had arrived, and with it, the quiet, unstoppable force that was Jordan. Taker paused mid-step, his chest heaving, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins like wildfire. His usually confident stance had crumbled, and for the first time in his career, he felt something unfamiliar, genuine humility. Sweat trickled down his temples, glistening under the harsh arena lights, and his hands trembled slightly, not from exhaustion, but from the realization that he had faced someone unlike any opponent he had ever encountered. His strikes, sharp, precise, and meticulously honed over years of training, had been rendered ineffective, deflected, redirected, and controlled without Jordan ever delivering a single blow meant to injure. The truth weighed heavily on him. Here was a master who operated on a level beyond raw skill, beyond speed or strength, someone who understood the very essence of martial arts in a way Taker had only glimpsed in books, rarely in life, and perhaps never with this clarity. You're incredible, Taker finally said, his voice low, roughened by both exertion and awe. The words trembled slightly, carrying an almost reverent tone, as if he was speaking to a force greater than himself. For the first time, he felt compelled to acknowledge not just Jordan's skill, but the philosophy behind it, the patience, the awareness, the control that transcended technique. The audience, sensing the shift in the room, leaned forward as if drawn by an invisible magnet. They had witnessed not just a display of technique, but a transformation unfolding before their eyes. Taker's smirk had vanished completely, replaced by a quiet, sincere admiration that rippled across the arena like a wave. Jordan inclined his head in a polite bow, his posture calm and composed, his movements still carrying the elegance of someone completely at ease in their own mastery. Martial arts isn't about showing off, he said quietly, the words carrying a weight that silenced the murmurs of the crowd. It's about control, respect, and timing. Strength isn't always visible. There was no arrogance in his tone, no hint of superiority, only the calm certainty of someone who had trained, studied, and lived the principles of their art to perfection. Every syllable seemed measured, deliberate, and imbued with the quiet wisdom that comes from true mastery. The statement was simple, yet profound, resonating deeply with everyone watching. The audience erupted into applause, a thunderous wave of sound that filled the arena and spilled out into the surrounding corridors. Camera flashes erupted in rapid succession, capturing every subtle expression. Taker's humbled gaze, Jordan's serene calm, the astonishment etched on the faces of onlookers who had underestimated him from the very beginning. Many in the crowd had assumed, based on his modest role as a waiter at the establishment hosting the martial arts event, that Jordan was an ordinary man, someone who belonged to the background of life rather than its center stage. Yet he had shattered every preconceived notion, demonstrating that true mastery does not come with fame, accolades, or visible titles. It resides quietly, patiently, waiting for the moment to reveal itself through skill, discipline, and an unshakable inner strength. Taker stepped back, bowing deeply in acknowledgement. It was more than a gesture of sportsmanship. It was a silent confession of his own limitations, a recognition that talent alone, untempered by awareness and understanding, could falter against mastery hidden beneath humility. His eyes, once filled with the spark of confident challenge, now shone with a mixture of respect, wonder, and a hint of self-reflection. He realized that this encounter was not merely a contest of physical skill, but a lesson in philosophy, patience, and the true essence of martial arts. Every strike he had attempted, every feint and combination, had been neutralized not by brute force, but by Jordan's mastery of perception, anticipation, and timing. Taker understood now that martial arts was not simply about overpowering opponents. It was about harmony with movement, discipline of the mind, and the quiet strength of restraint. Around the arena, spectators whispered excitedly, their words a mixture of amazement and newfound respect. "Did you see that?" one person murmured, eyes wide. "He didn't even need to hit him, and yet he completely controlled the fight." Another whispered in disbelief, "All this time, we thought he was just a waiter. He's extraordinary." The murmurs grew into discussions, debates, and exclamations as the realization spread like wildfire. Appearances can be deceiving, and mastery often resides in unexpected places. Some young martial artists in the crowd clenched their fists in silent determination, inspired to push themselves harder, realizing that skill alone is insufficient without understanding, patience, and respect. Jordan lowered his gaze, scanning the faces in the audience with quiet humility. He didn't bask in the applause, didn't seek validation. Instead, he allowed the recognition to exist without attaching ego to it. His satisfaction was internal, rooted in the knowledge that he had honored the principles of his practice and demonstrated the importance of balance, control, and respect over spectacle. To him, the fight had never been about proving superiority. It had been about exemplifying the core values of martial arts, and in doing so, teaching a lesson that could not be conveyed through words alone. Taekta finally straightened, his posture still strong but tempered with newfound wisdom. "I've trained for years," he admitted aloud, his voice carrying across the arena, "but I've never seen anything like this. You've taught me something I didn't know I was missing. Thank you." The sincerity in his tone resonated with everyone present, transforming the atmosphere from one of tension and competition into one of shared respect and understanding. Even the judges and organizers, who had initially approached the event with standard expectations, nodded in quiet acknowledgement of the extraordinary performance they had just witnessed. The applause continued louder, more heartfelt, as the realization settled over the crowd. Skill can be measured in strikes, in victories, and in accolades, but true mastery transcends all of that. It resides in the subtlety of movement, the calm of the mind, the patience to wait, and the wisdom to act with precision. Jordan, humble yet undeniably powerful, had embodied this truth, proving that respect is not demanded. It is earned through consistency, discipline, and the quiet demonstration of excellence. The aura in the arena shifted completely. Admiration replaced doubt, awe replaced disbelief, and a profound lesson etched itself into the memory of everyone watching. Taekta finally extended his hand toward Jordan, an unspoken gesture bridging the gap between humility and acknowledgement, between challenger and master. Jordan accepted it with a nod, a subtle squeeze of the hand affirming mutual respect. The room seemed to exhale collectively, releasing the tension that had built over the course of the fight. The lesson was complete. Strength is not always loud, victory is not always violent, and true mastery is rarely visible on the surface. As cameras flashed, spectators whispered, and applause thundered, one truth became undeniable. Appearances can deceive, titles can mislead, but respect, once earned through action and integrity, commands recognition across any stage, arena, or lifetime. After the spar, Taekta invited Jordan onto the stage. "Everyone, meet Jordan, our hidden champion tonight. Let this remind us never to judge by appearances." Interviews followed. People asked how Jordan learned martial arts while working as a waiter. He smiled humbly. "Discipline is about finding time, even in life's ordinary moments. Every day is training if you live intentionally." The story went viral the next morning. Clips of the spar flooded social media, leaving viewers worldwide inspired and speechless. Jordan continued working at the restaurant, but his life had shifted. Martial arts schools reached out to him, documentaries wanted his story, yet he remained grounded, knowing the real lesson wasn't fame, it was the power of humility, practice, and self-belief. The gala had set out to entertain, but instead it taught everyone that strength isn't always visible, and heroes can appear in the most ordinary places. By the end of the night, the waiter-turned hero had left an indelible mark, not through arrogance, but through skill, grace, and quiet confidence.